History is full of strange twists of fate. From world-shaking events to everyday moments, some coincidences are so bizarre that they seem almost impossible. These weird historical coincidences will make you rethink what you know about the past. The Titanic and the novel that predicted it. In 1898, author Morgan Robertson wrote a book titled The Wreck of the Titan, telling the tale of an unsinkable ship that hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank. 14 years later, the Titanic met the same tragic fate, almost identical to Robertson's fictional ship. Coincidence or a chilling prediction of what was to come? Lincoln and Kennedy. Twinned fates. Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy were separated by a century, but shared eerily similar fates. Both were elected 100 years apart, both were assassinated on a Friday, and both were succeeded by a man named Johnson. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy, and Kennedy's was named Lincoln. Edwin Booth saves. Lincoln's son. A life saved, before a life taken. In the late 1860s, Robert Todd Lincoln, son of President Abraham Lincoln, found himself in danger while boarding a train. He was saved by none other than Edwin Booth, a famous actor, and the brother of John Wilkes Booth, the man who would assassinate Lincoln just months later. Was it fate that brought these two families together in such tragic circumstances? The wrong turn that started World War I. A wrong turn on a quiet Sarajevo street in 1914 changed the world forever. After a failed assassination attempt, Franz Ferdinand's driver accidentally drove down the wrong street, stopping directly in front of one of the assassins who seized the moment to kill the Archduke. This single mistake sparked the beginning of World War I. The 1975 taxi accidents, identical tragedies, 1 year apart. In 1975, a tragic accident occurred when a taxi struck and killed a man on his scooter in Bermuda. Exactly 1 year later, riding the same scooter, the twin brother of the first man was struck and killed by the same taxi, driven by the same driver. Even more strangely, the passenger in the taxi was the same passenger as the first accident. Twin brothers, separated at birth, parallel lives. In the 1940s, twin brothers were separated at birth and adopted by different families. They didn't meet until much later in life, only to discover that they had lived nearly identical lives. Both were named James. Both had married women named Linda, divorced and then remarried women named Betty. Both became police officers and even had dogs of the same name at one point. Even their sons had the same names. Was it just coincidence that their lives mirrored each other so closely? Mark Twain and Halley's Comet, A Life Written in the Stars. Mark Twain was born in 1835, the year Halley's Comet passed by Earth, and he famously predicted he would go out with the comet as well. Sure enough, Twain died in 1910, the very year Halley's Comet returned. Was his fate truly written in the stars? The Great Fire of London and the Great Fire of Chicago, a fiery connection. Great Fire of London in 1666 and the Great Fire of Chicago in 1871 have more in common than just destruction. Both fires started on October 8th, causing widespread destruction. Anthony Hopkins and the Lost Book. While preparing for a film role in The Girl from Petrovka, actor Anthony Hopkins tried to find a copy of the novel but had no luck. Then, on a subway in London, he stumbled upon an abandoned copy. To his astonishment, when Hopkins met the author, he told him that he didn't have a copy because he had loaned it to a friend who had lost it on the subway. Wilmer McLean. The Civil War began and ended in his front yard. Wilmer McLean lived in a house near Manassas, Virginia, where the first major battle of the Civil War took place in his front yard. Seeking peace, he moved far away to Appomattox Courthouse. In 1865, fate brought the war back to him. General Lee surrendered to General Grant in McLean's parlor, officially ending the war. As McLean would later say, "War began in my front yard and ended in my front parlor." Edgar Allan Poe's time-traveling tale. In 1838, Edgar Allan Poe wrote a novel about 4 shipwreck survivors who resorted to cannibalism, killing and eating a cabin boy named Richard Parker. 46 years later, a real shipwreck saw survivors do the same. And the cabin boy's name? Richard Parker. Could Poe have somehow predicted this gruesome event? Lives of King Umberto I and his identical stranger. In 1900, King Umberto I of Italy met a man who looked exactly like him and had lived a nearly identical life. The man was born on the same day as the king, in the same town, and even married a woman with the same name as the queen. Next day, the man was killed in an accident, and King Umberto was assassinated later that same day. Catherine Eddowes, on September 29, 1988, Catherine Eddowes was arrested for drunkenness in London, released just shy of 1 a.m. when she had sobered up. When leaving the station, she gave the police a fake name, Mary Kelly. That night, Eddowes was murdered by Jack the Ripper, who would also later brutally murder Mary Kelly. Throughout history, strange coincidences remind us that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories from history. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you next time.